So here is a review, discussion, podcast, whatever you want to call it, of Bioshock 2's base game as well as the Minerva's Den DLC. There was a lot of work put into this one. It is an extremely massive upgrade compared to what I did for my review/discussion at the end of Bioshock 1. I wanted to put a little bit of love into this, and I just don't feel like giving it a menu screen with my co-host, Gavin GL, about the game. I also, too, want to put emphasis on this as well. Come here. Come a little closer, okay? This discussion piece has major spoilers being talked about in the video about Bioshock 1 and 2 and Minerva's Den DLC, okay? So if you do not want to be spoiled about anything in regards to those things I listed, please step away from the video right now. Bottle warning. Okay? You with me? All right. Perfect. And I don't honestly know how many of these I'm gonna do just because I am a one-man machine and I do all the work with the post-production, the editing, everything. And this, again, took me a lot of work to do. But I hope that you guys enjoy this one. And I just wanted to express it in the best way that I know how. As always, be safe. As always, be safe, be humble. Do you do best. See you guys in the next one. So the game starts, what year is it, like 1958 when it starts?
Yes, I believe so.
You're as a big daddy. It shows you in the image, you're just walking with your little sister who's Eleanor. She's just kind of walking around. She's going through vents. She's like, look, daddy, this is you. She ends up wandering off, essentially, jumps down this balcony. Then there's these three, I guess I'll call them splicers, that start attacking her. And then you get a plasma thrown at your face, which makes you essentially be hypnotized so that you get a gun shot to your head because Sophia tells you to do so. As time goes along and we're in the part where I see Eleanor quarantined and sitting there in this bed, I'm guessing over time, because I remember Sophia saying that her meds were getting stronger, right? Like they put something with medication on, like they put more like doses on her so that she was almost like in this like coma state, because as I understand, as they get separated, they kind of get into a full induced coma, and they're like, essentially, if her heart stops beating, his heart stops beating. I guess that's kind of where I get lost, is her state and how she got that way. She was communicating with Delta telepathically, essentially, like in his mind, and that's how every time she'd be like, father, or hope this helps, with that little like line, and you get a little gift from her. Can you explain that part?
So you're asking why
Was Eleanor like in a coma related like state? Like she got so bad, but Delta wasn't. Like Delta seemed like he was still moving and doing fine and seemed okay, but it seemed like whatever Sophia did to Eleanor to almost make it seem like she was in a coma related, like her. They talk about doses.
I believe Sophia feared that Eleanor would like destroy the city, basically, and so she put her in a medical induced coma so that she didn't like kill her, but she was stuck, basically, so she's still alive.
So why was she afraid that she was going to destroy the city? Because of her power?
That's actually a good question. I've never even thought of that. I would assume it's because Sophia assumed she would like go get Delta herself instead of having the little sisters do it, and then they would like fight to destroy Rapture, do what they did in the end, basically.
Because another thing that gets confusing for me too, when the audio was scuffed and I had the issues that I had and all the problems that was going on with it, the big thing that bothered me the most, because anytime I saw anybody go through the Vita chambers and get reactivated by them, I was like, oh, that's Andrew Ryan then. Like I'm thinking I'm Andrew Ryan, because nobody is ever like saying in the game who Subject Delta is. They're always saying Subject Delta.
So what happens with the Vita chambers with that scene that shows Eleanor
Jerry rigging.
manning the little sister.
Yeah, and they jerry rigged it to bring him back to life, and they used Ryan's
His
genetics.
genetic code.
Yeah, but I'm not actually Ryan though. I got to make sure I understand that, because that's what I was. Because
Ryan's dead.
okay, because I was in the impression of, okay, Ryan's the father and Sophia's the mother and Eleanor's the daughter. And that's what my original thought was. But that doesn't make sense. It just doesn't add up. Because I'm gonna assume Sophia Lamb shut down all of the Vita chambers. That's why one of them got jerry-rigged to use Ryan's genetics to bring back Delta.
Well, it wouldn't matter if they were on or off. No one would be able to use them.
But since she had to jerry-rig one of them to get them working to bring back Delta, that's the case, right?
Well, I believe it's that it's jerry-rigged your genetics so that you can then use them. Not that they turn them back on. I don't think they were ever turned off.
We could almost say, too, that why didn't she just destroy them, period? Just blow them the fuck up.
Well, what up, the Vita chambers?
Yeah, so that there would be no way of
No
Delta.
one could use them either way, probably. Oh, you mean like after Delta got up?
Sure, even that too, that's a good way to look at it as well, but I'm just saying, just
probably because there'd be no rhyme or reason, because no one could use them.
okay.
Too much work.
Just never thinking that it's a possibility that they, yeah, I get you. It's just kind of like they're just there. It's not like they're ever gonna matter anyways. They're not. Nobody can use them.
That's one of the things that's hard to think too into, because you almost have to suspend some disbelief for that, because if they destroyed it, it gets rid of a game mechanic.
That's what I mean.
Game mechanics are hard to talk about lore-wise, because you have to sort of understand that it's a game reason that it's there, not a story reason.
Okay.
I almost promise you there's no explanation on why they're still there.
So every time Eleanor is obsessed with having this father, she never really has one in this story. Her father connection is Subject Delta, but they're not.
Can I tell you one thing?
Yeah.
So this got cut because I believe they want you to have your own interpretation. There was an audio log, I think, or some note or something that got cut that did say you were her father, biological father. But I think they cut it because then that doesn't make sense. How would he have been with Sophia?
Right, because Sophia's constantly saying things like die together as a family. I think she just calls the family this cult that she's creating. That's family. You know, that's just all it is. So she keeps saying the word as like a religious cult in a way. To me, it's not like you are her wife. It's just what she's saying.
Or just the people you've been fighting throughout the whole game.
Okay. And then, you know, it's always interesting to me too, if you know, when you see the flashes on the screen of the people that you rescued, what her dialogues would be. I'm very intrigued to see. I know you said you probably will never do the other endings, or you never have, but I'm intrigued to see.
I've watched them, but I'm not gonna do them.
Okay. So we know for a fact that Sophia and Eleanor are genetically their mother. There's no like weird shit about that, right? That's blank as day. Their mother and daughter. Does Sophia Lamb have this ability to just control minds? And that's why Eleanor is able to control little sisters because of genetics?
No. So
because my following question to that then would be, when you see Sinclair all of a sudden taking over as a big daddy, I'm confused on how, one, Sinclair gets into a big daddy, and two, just how Sophia is able to, because I know there was a point she's sitting in this room as your little sister, and she says, everybody look for Sinclair, so they must have somehow captured Sinclair and put him in a big daddy suit. And then from there, it's all just, I don't know, is that one of those situations, again, I'm supposed to read and go, okay, that's just up to the interpreter of the person to make it up and make up their own little theory. I don't understand that part.
I would assume it's something to do with plasmids. He doesn't have the ability to control minds. She's just she's good at like manipulating people, pretty much. Psychiatrist, I believe is the term I'm looking for. The Sinclair thing, I'm not entirely sure. I would assume it's because of a plasmid or something, which is why he fights you, because he doesn't want to.
She was good with that one recording of the dude that owned the jail cell.
Guess I had the wrong of it when it came to Dr. Lamb. She explained how my cravings for control were rotting me out from the inside. We found all these incidents in my log where I made it easy for a convict to get the jump on me, just so I could bloody punish him. Christ. But I believe I can do some good down here now, with the family. Well, we have a shot at surviving that fucking bedlam going on up there. Maybe even take the city back.
I feel like that wasn't true. I think that was Sophia manipulating him so that she could have more control or power over the, what is the word I'm looking for now?
Prison?
Yes, of the prison.
Eleanor, I believe it's something about her genetics. I would assume once you have that slug put in you, there's like something different about you now because you're a little sister. And she is like stronger than any of the other little or big sisters, so I assume there's just some sort of like power there or some ability she has to like connect with them more than a normal person. I don't know that's ever fully said, but I would assume Tenenbaum and Fontaine and them kidnapped her, made her a little sister, then Gil and Chung made the Alpha series to bond, tried it with those two. It worked, but not in the way they wanted, but now they can't kill them, so now they just roam around Rapture, I guess. And Sophia's like searching for her daughter.
There's a point in the game where the scene that happens after she puts the pillow over Eleanor, and I start pretty much going into a coma, and then I'm tied up into this chair. Well, Eleanor is actually still confined in this other room, and now they're essentially separated, but she's not actually dead, which was even more weird because I thought she would have killed her, but she didn't. She just made her pass out, I guess, so that they could chain up Delta. Since she wasn't fully dead, she ends up getting a little sister to inject a plasmid into Subject Delta so that Subject Delta can see what the little sister sees, right? And then he essentially then is able to see through the little sister. And then they go through events. So like now Delta is seeing what the little sister sees. And so they're going through and she's getting the big sister suit. But then what's confusing to me is that I'm able to summon her as well in fights. So now I'm trying to think and go, okay, when is Eleanor actually there and when is Eleanor not? Like, is Eleanor always physically there every time I summon her? Or is she just a plasmid when I'm summoning her? Or is that just like a signal? I feel like when I
think that's more of just a game thing, because
Okay.
if she was there the whole time, it'd be too easy. So they made it like a plasma where she's like a summon now versus like she's just a party member. I think that's more just a game thing. I think it's safe to imply that she's there the whole time though, for story purposes.
So Sinclair was the owner of Persephone, which was this jail place, right?
Sort of. My understanding, I think Persephone was the correctional facility, which actually, yes, I think that was the jail. But correctional facility isn't like, that's to like turn people good, right? Not necessarily prison. Then that was the headquarters of Sinclair Solutions, which I then think was like help people disappear, help them get out of that sort of shit. To help people pretty much.
Oh, I thought it was like if Ryan didn't like them, that's where they went.
Like I said, help people disappear.
There's that weird thing with Sinclair, and he says a line in one of the messages that says,
"Son, I built this place, and I did rent you out to those plasmid trials up at Fontaine. And now I'm paying for it. Wish I had time to make amends. Take the lifeboat, it's all yours. Just don't leave me like this."
So what he would do is basically they would put people who were considered like a danger to Rapture, like criminals or whatever. They would put them in Persephone's, I believe. It would be removed from public record as if they didn't exist. Sinclair would then basically give them to Fontaine for plasma testing at Fontaine Futuristics. They became test subjects basically. Then that would later lead to the creation of the Alpha series. They would put people in the suits.
Eleanor's a little sister because of Stanley Poole. Delta is a big daddy because of Sinclair.
Yes.
Okay, so at least I have those two things correct.
Ryan was suspicious of this Johnny Topside for some reason. He sent them to Persephone, and then he got cycled through to be a alpha subject because that's what Sinclair was doing. And he became Delta.
She obviously was doing some type of testing on the prisoners.
Lamb's attention seems to have drifted from my prisoners to her daughter. Guess she figures they're irredeemable. Now I got guys clamoring for the next fix of Adam, and I've got to pull teeth to squeeze any out of the good doctor. Guess I'm lucky her treatments kept them too weak to storm the tower, or they'd have my guts for garters.
He was doing therapy sessions. Air quotes, therapy sessions.
So explain the air quotes.
You know how Jack is a sleeper agent? Same thing. Converting them.
Because even like there was a scene too where you're in her office, her therapy session office, and she's talking to Grace Holloway.
"All right, Doctor, I'm here.
but don't think wearing this butterfly means I'm happy.
Grace, I know you all too well. Want of child defines you. But biological loyalty turns us against the rest of the world, whom we ought to love in equal measure. Your poverty is testament to that, but your voice inspires the people. I am asking you to join a much larger family. Though your body failed you, you shall live on in us.
So once they like give her the blue butterfly, what does that essentially do?
I'm pretty sure the blue butterfly is a symbol that the Rapture family uses as like kind of like rebirth. Like it's like being baptized, right? Like you've been
Okay.
reborn, converting people more and more.
And she was also using the acronym Project WYK, is what she was saying a lot.
Prison, it seems, was a blessing. Ryan is now dead by his own son's hand. But far more interesting is the program of compulsion bred into his child, coded WYK. It was some manner of verbal trigger phrase, which the boy would obey as an order, unerringly. In a way, this sad thing, this half-man, had escaped the self. Highly intelligent, but devoid of so-called free will, with all its convenient blind spots. What if he had been instructed to uphold the common good? What if he were a volunteer?
She was trying to tinker it a little differently than how Fontaine did it.
This calls everything into question. Even as I record this, I can scarcely believe. Psychiatry has been my continual study to chart consciousness in all its strata. But intelligence does not require introspection. The son of Ryan was more effective than all his self-aware rivals. He lived without questions. I could end the self and save the world.
I don't feel like I have a conscience, like in that Big Daddy suit. I can't picture that unless you can somehow make me understand that better. But subconsciously, every time Sophia tries to talk to me, I'm just like, you're talking to a thing that probably doesn't even understand what the hell you're saying.
You granted Eleanor the will to choose, and now, like a plague, she spreads it to those innocents. To be self-aware is a curse, Delta. You are damning them.
The Alpha series is not like the Bouncers, but I believe the Alpha series is more just like normal people put in the suit, and then they probably undergo some form of like therapy and gene tonics, blah blah blah, to then like shape them differently, but they're still like human. It's like the Bouncer ones, like those kind of round Big Daddies. There's like concept art of what they look like on the inside, and they're like fucked up and like molded humans that are like only to be in the suit. Whereas the Alpha series, which were all the earliest ones, were just like normal people put in the suit, in some way trained or turned into this like protector.
Okay, I'm trying to go back to the testing thing. I'm just trying to understand Sophia's goal. From what you're telling me, sorry if you have to keep repeating yourself because it's just how I learn, is Sophia wanted to have one body be able to do multiple duties, is the basic term that I can think of.
Eleanor's condition may be a blessing in disguise. Early splicing tests indicate 0 genetic damage due to her condition as a little sister. It appears that she is our new vessel. This will be no mere personality schism, though. Rapture's genius will be held within her DNA, able to shift into desired patterns at will. A utopian cannot be confined to a single throw of the genetic dice. When needed, she is a composer, a dancer, an engineer. She truly will be the people's daughter.
And so she was testing it on people in Persephone. It wasn't working. So then all those people turned into splicers, so she had one option, which was Gil. Gil turned into this fucking thing. That didn't fucking work. Gil feels like guilty as fuck, and it was like, man, I hate what we've turned Eleanor into. I feel horrible that Eleanor is this way.
Our hope was to bond a little sister to a single protector, so she had to be expendable in case of error. As we were fabricating a father bond, we couldn't really afford to have the girl's parents asking around. So, Fontaine's orphanages provided, and the procedure was an unprecedented success. If I had only known who the child was, Eleanor, I'm so sorry.
Once Gil was a failed project, then my understanding is that Sophia had no other choice but to do it on her daughter, but she didn't want to. It almost seemed like she wanted it as a last resort type of thing.
Eleanor is changing as Delta draws closer. In her sleep, she mutters about having witnessed moments from his journey here. She is beginning to resist the moral conditioning. Eleanor's bond with Delta is turning her from the daughter of the people back into a rebellious child whose voice I do not recognize. Worse, I suspect Eleanor of direct involvement in his return. I fear that to separate them, I may have to take measures for which I will be unable to forgive myself.
And the only way that she could probably really do that is by essentially killing her so that the Delta could no longer come back to Eleanor, so that they could be permanently unbonded, so that she could bring her back to life as the way that she wanted her to be. Does that make any sense, or am I way off? Because
I think you're in the right ballpark.
Okay, because that's like where my thought is. That's where I'm thinking. Is she's just trying to test. But the issue then that I run into too is the key thing that they talk about with adolescence.
The little sisters are getting older, which is troubling. As they reach adolescence, they become aggressive, feral. Worse, the Adam they ingest contains traces of lethal plasmids left over from the war. The splicers are becoming far more effective predators as well. Our big daddies are falling left and right. Perhaps the elder sisters could be trained to sniff out the lost Adam and reclaim it for us. Yes, from what I've seen, they certainly wouldn't have to wait for the culprit to die.
There's recordings during the game. These little sisters are just running off of balconies and injuring themselves and killing themselves, but they heal so quickly. Their leg or whatever they broke in their leg morphs together, and it's immediately healed. Boom, just like that. But when they would try to even repair it during process of trying to get it into the right pieces, it took many different attempts to do that.
Now, one of the girls managed to dart past the nurse today and throw herself over the railing in the lobby. Not certain if she was trying to end her own life or merely escape. But either way, her legs had healed by the time I managed to get down to the first floor where she lay. Now, without proper setting, the rapid healing process had fused her bones back together at odd angles. We had to re-break and set them almost a dozen times, each due to the small window of viability. Now, those children may be immortal, but I can verify they feel pain. Advising Dr. Lamb on higher doses of sedatives to keep this from happening again.
And so what a theory popped in my head was, since Eleanor can control these things, right? As you reach adolescence, they said that they become more defiant. So there was another recording that is said in it too, where she's reading these little things about, since you don't want me to know about the outside world, here's this porcelain figurine of whatever built in this. Isn't that right, Mother? And then you hear a snapping in the background, like Sophia's like breaking something.
Hello, Mother. As you've always said, I shouldn't be allowed to wander the city in my condition. But without going outside, it's harder to hear much about the world, so I'm learning at home. This, I think, is a porcelain tea service in the style of Louis XV. Isn't that right? Now that's a fascinating sound. And this is called a stained glass window, handcrafted by your adoring flock. They've gone to a lot of trouble to capture your likeness, haven't they?
And it sounds like she's breaking like a dish or something as she's like, oh, like
I think
you
that's
shouldn't.
Eleanor throwing them,
Oh, you think so? Okay.
breaking them.
Okay.
Pretty sure.
She's defiant, but I think it's because that's what happens when they get older as a little sister and they still have the atom in their bodies. That's my understanding. That's why she's being that way, because of what Adam does to an adolescent's little sister.
I feel like that could be up to interpretation too, because I feel like I didn't view it that way. I just viewed it as like a rebel kid. If a kid really wants something and you're denying it, they will rebel.
Is that why she wanted to always run away from Sophia? Because Sophia wanted her to be of this image. She says like it's like a sin to almost like be able to think for yourself.
Eleanor was to be a composite of all Rapture's genius. The first living utopian, serving the world at large with no regard for herself. To force consciousness on such a being is to tear its wings away. That was your gift to her, Delta. Just as she hoped. You must be very proud.
The kids that are the rebels usually have the strict parents. You can't talk to this person, you have to do this, you have to learn this. That would naturally in real life make a kid rebel.
So then I, at the end of the game, had this assumption, unless I'm wrong, I don't know if you want to tell me or not, I don't know if it's spoilers, but I'm thinking you play as Eleanor Lamb in Bioshock Infinite.
I didn't tell you. I mean, I could tell you, because it's not like...
I said that...
What is a spoiler? Because they advertise the game and tell you who you play as, but you just haven't seen the...
Correct.
Like, you didn't watch the trailer.
No, I didn't watch the trailer. So
Not a spoiler, but is it a spoiler to you?
I see a picture of a cover of a woman and a guy holding a shotgun. That's what I see. I think that woman is Eleanor, and I think the guy is Jack. That's what I think. Unless that person, that guy, is a whole new character. And I don't know who the hell he is, but maybe he's protecting Eleanor.
They are two completely different characters.
That's so wild to me. Just so odd to me, as you stated, that she's not involved, or maybe I shouldn't assume that. But you're saying that I play as a completely different character. I just don't understand when games do that and they leave a character that was very impactful in the game. Same with Jack was in 1. But I have to say though, that even though Jack wasn't involved in 2, which I really wanted originally when we were having this discussion and I was very heated and pissed off about, at the end of the game I started to respect it and was like, this story actually isn't too bad. It actually did a pretty good job, and I shouldn't tie myself towards one specific character to get myself mad or angry. And we'll look at it from that concept. Because this is one of my first times I've ever really played a game. You know, a story have 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, whatever, and the story, feel like there should be a story connected to it, but it's not. How do you develop a world of Rapture, but still have 2 different stories? And still make it good and worth playing, especially with replayability and all that. I think the difference between this and that was I just thought the big daddy was Jack. And that's why I thought, like, you know, it was going to be this revelation, like they threw a loophole to me with Fontaine and Atlas. And I was like, wow, mind blown. So what's the next thing they can mind blow me with? Johnny Topside was Jack. Wow, crazy, you know. But they threw the other loop in there, and it wasn't necessarily the character you are playing and understanding your backstory, but the little sisters and how they were created. And that was the focus on Bioshock 2.
I think a thing some games do that maybe you're not used to. I feel like Bioshock 1 and 2 kind of do it this way. More so Bioshock 2 than 1. A lot of games, specifically with unvoiced protagonists, have self-insert characters, which is basically the idea is that you can see yourself as the character. They give you choices that are like, what would you do? It's easy for you to self-insert yourself because he doesn't have a background. All we know is Johnny Topside and he diver. We don't know who he is, where he came from, family, friends, nothing. No info on him. I feel like that's something that maybe is a little... might be a little weird to you as well, because I don't think you have played any other games like that.
It sounds like, you know, to me, when you're playing as a character in the game, I want to have a connection to it. But it didn't build a connection with the character. So I was just kind of
Some
like,
games are meant to be you are the character.
I wasn't the main character at all in this story. At least that's what I felt. I was just,
Eleanor is.
yeah. They didn't have any little sisters before Eleanor, right?
I don't think Eleanor is the first.
Because you know how there's Delta's the fourth big daddy. They had to have used 3 other little sisters before Delta to make this work to test.
Yeah.
Eleanor is the first prototype to make work.
Yes, Eleanor and Delta are the first to work with the
Bonding.
I forget like the term they use, but it basically bonds them to each other. They ended up not liking that because they wanted
would separate.
Big Daddies to bond with any
All-
little sister that
yep.
they came across.
Yep.
Whereas Alpha is only bonded to Eleanor, and that's not what they wanted. They wanted like the Big Daddies that you see in game that just walk around and like hit the vents and attach to any little sister. That's what they wanted.
Essentially, if one was like rescued, they would just go find another one to take care of.
Yeah.
In a logical standpoint, because
Alpha is glued to Eleanor
Yes.
and vice versa.
if I were to rescue one of them and free it, then that essentially just becomes a drone, or it just really honestly probably just falls asleep and collapses. If that were the case, if we were looking at like a realistic standpoint, this is what I would picture. If I went, and it would be really cool if you actually could do this, is you could just take the little sister, grab her, quickly rescue her, and then you just see the Big Daddy just fall down and just poof. Like that would have been cool to like see.
Think about how little sisters see the world.
That's weird to me. That was wild. Because there was a point in there where I made a joke, and I'm gathering Adam, and I didn't think that was, I was like, it's funny how they see the angels, and I was like, see the light in the tummy? And it just went to reality, and it showed this, and I just went, no fucking way. That's what I said. I was like, I didn't think they actually would have just all of a sudden I'm collecting Adam. Like that was pretty fucking cool.
Yeah.
That was my favorite part. That was my favorite part of the game, was right there. Was me being a little sister and moving through the area, because it took me a minute.
The splicers are like all like,
Yeah.
like a socialite.
Yeah.
They're like, no, yes, of course,
Yeah.
wine, yes. And then like it flashes and they're like splicers and they're fucked up.
Yep. It took me a minute, because I have footage of it where I'm just like, hold on a minute. This is that one room I was fighting the 2 big sisters in. This is that same room, but except now it just looks different from the little sister's eyes. And I was just like, holy shit. Like it took me a bit there to realize that it was the same room, just more like what Rapture did look like. Little sisters see the old days of Rapture, not like this, burned down city essentially. So that was really, really cool to see that.
Instead of blood on the floor, they'd see like rose petals.
Yes. That confused me too. I was like, is that blood or is that rose petals? I'm not sure what that is.
What are your thoughts on Minerva's Den?
So Minerva's Den, again, I had thoughts in my head that something was gonna blow my mind, in the sense of like, I'm Jack again. For some reason, I just have this feeling of just tying to be like, I want Jack back. But it obviously didn't happen. But this is the first Big Daddy that had a previous name tied to it. Obviously they had Johnny Topside, but that's not his name. That was a nickname. We know he was a deep diver beforehand, but I do not know his personal identity of Subject Delta. Yeah, so Reed Wall and Charles Porter. And they were the ones that worked on the Thinker together. What was the Thinker meant for?
It was meant to like control all the security systems and shit like that.
Is that where the audio logs came from too? Did the Thinker create those?
What do you mean create them?
Like so that people could like record messages and leave them around laying for the world, like the Thinker built that?
I don't know.
Because you keep seeing these reels and machines all around. And I'm like, is that how audio logs were created? Was from this area? Ryan knew about this place, or essentially gave him the duty to create this thing.
Charles gets invited to Rapture after London gets bombed. He already is like an expert in computers and math and coding and stuff like that. He works with Turing, essentially the creator of the computer, pretty much, I believe. Something like that. So he clearly worked with like the British in some way during the military with computers and Alan Turing. Like you could argue that maybe Charles Milton helped create computers in that world. He's super smart as far as this sort of thing goes. So then he gets an invite to Rapture from Ryan.
Mr. Ryan hired me to build a computer that could keep an entire city running on time. The Rapture Operational Data Interpreter Network. Folks call it the Thinker for short. We've harnessed the power of Adam even in this, allowing the mainframe to process data at the speed of thought. In other words, it thinks for us. Yes. And with the completion of the independent reasoning processor, it may finally think for itself. If Turing could see me now.
And then he takes it after Pearl dies.
That first year in London working for Turing, I didn't see Pearl much. Spent all day and night in a government compound, building a computer to crack the Enigma machine. Pearl got pretty fed up with me. I didn't pay her heed. And then one night, I'm out in that complex, and the blitz starts falling. Next morning, I came home to find nothing but ashes where I last saw her. Nothing but ashes.
And he's like grieving and he needs some escape. Once he's made the Thinker, which is an AI, he starts to then try to turn this AI into Pearl because he's grieving so badly that he can't move on.
Continuing input of audio data into the Thinker's database. Subject, Pearl Porter.
Closer now into the recorder.
I don't know what to say, Milton. This is Mrs. Pearl Porter speaking.
That's the way.
And I'm recording this message with my brilliant husband, whom I love very much. And, I am so looking forward to seeing London.
That wasn't so hard, now was it? Won't you be glad that we have these to listen to when we're old and gray?
Interesting.
He's stuck, which is very common in that sort of scenario, right? So he's using this AI to try and he's feeding it audio logs so that the AI can understand her personality.
Continuing input of audio data into the Thinker's database. Subject, Pearl Porter.
I want to tell the recorder how we met, Milton.
Okay, sure.
I was working in my family's diner. School was starting for the fall. And one morning, in walks this college boy. Clean cut. First thing I noticed was his eyes. He sat down and ordered bacon, eggs, and coffee. He was shy, but we talked a little off and on. He came in every single morning for breakfast and ordered the same thing. I told my mama, that boy must really love your cooking. She said, he isn't coming in for the food, honey. He's coming in for you. A year later, we were married.
You could even say it's similar to ChatGPT. You keep telling it things that it's going to learn.
So yeah, that's exactly how AI works.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
But then once it does start talking back to him, he's like, holy shit, this is fucked up.
Yes.
I don't want this. And then it's made even worse by the fact that then the AI's like, what, Porter? You don't love me anymore? And it's like, he's like, no, stop.
I believe I'm done feeding audio recordings and personal anecdotes to the Thinker. I am set to test the personality duplication function. Target personality, Pearl Porter. Thinker, are you ready?
Yes.
Wait.
Starting test. Hello, Pearl.
Hello, Milton.
How have you been?
Just wonderful, Milton. I've missed you, though. It's been so long.
Pearl, No, this isn't right. It isn't her.
Weird.
Test.
But what's the matter, Milton?
Oh, God.
Don't you still love me?
Oh, God, I said end function, Thinker. Now. It's over.
Sophia tried to recruit Charles, and he didn't believe in any of her. What the fuck does he say? He's like
Hoopla.
family mumbo jumbo or whatever the fuck he says.
Yeah.
Dear Dr. Lamb, I received the invitation to your little social club today. In return, I'd like to make you a wager. I wager you need Rapture Central Computing just a little bit more than I need your half-baked metaphysical mumbo-jumbo. Ideal in science, not whatever it is you're up to. You keep out of Minerva's den, and I'll keep this city's automation from grinding to a complete and sudden halt. Sound fair?
And then Ryan loses trust in him for... How did that... Reed Wall made a fake letter. That's what it was. Reed makes a fake letter that makes it seem like Charles is siding with Fontaine, but he actually didn't.
Porter thinks his talking computer is harmless fun. It talks like a man. This is a simple toy? No. I have heard that Ryan is becoming paranoid about this Fontaine character. If Porter were implicated as a criminal, I would have the thinker to myself. As it was meant to be. Keep tinkering, Porter. Your time will come.
They imprison Charles in Persephone. Charles gets cycled into Alpha. He becomes subject.
Oh, that's how he becomes a big daddy. Because they wiped his memory, so when they say they wiped my memory, they did all this.
Well, Thinker, Ryan's secret police are on their way. They cooked up some kind of evidence against me. Treason, they say. I've heard what happens to folks who get disappeared, come back as one of those metal daddies. So, I'm leaving you with something to cogitate on in my absence. Inputting Rapture Departure Protocol. Figure a way to get yourself out of this city, Thinker. You've got to live on, no matter what happens to me. You'll find a way.
How did he get his memory back then?
I don't know fully how it works because, like, you can't delete someone's memories, but I think it's like they're suppressed. So once he starts seeing them come back, somehow they revert it back and he becomes like himself again. Because that's like the picture of him at the grave at the end, I think is meant to be after.
Yeah. And now that other theory too is all of these formulas written on the walls. You're seeing all these things, all that. Who's writing the formulas? I'm thinking it's Reed Wall trying to understand what it wants the Thinker to do. It's not the Thinker creating that. It was driving him mad, essentially, because there were a few times it was just in his own fucking blood. There were rooms that would say Porter's name in it. So I don't know why Porter would write his own name down if it was his formulas. It had to have been Reed doing it. I think Reed wanted to build this Thinker for like his own self. So I think during the time Porter was gone and he comes back, he's seen probably all this shit just written everywhere. Because I do not believe in Porter's actual office is any formulas written that I saw. Unless, who do you think it is?
I don't know. The formulas could have been Charles as well. He's like a mega smart mathematician. I don't think Reed is. He could have wrote it before.
So I'm looking at a ticket. You're telling me that this ticket was for him coming to Rapture. He was invited. That was his plane ticket to come to Rapture. Those were his bags. That was his suitcase. That was all his stuff.
That I'm not sure.
Because the plane ticket, when I looked at it in when I was playing through it to do timelines and stuff, the wedding was June. The ticket was August. You're saying that it's essentially he has these tickets to go down.
He kept leaving for work. The tickets might have been. There's audio logs talking about how he kept having to leave Pearl. He'd have to leave and come back, and she hated being alone. So maybe that's what the tickets were. He didn't go to Rapture till after she died. Maybe they moved from America to London, and that's what the ticket is. She's saying like, London's nice and all, but it's not home, you know?
Continuing input of audio data into the Thinker's database. Subject, Pearl Porter.
Hey, Milton. I'm recording this on the 6th straight day since you were home last. I know your work is important to the war effort, but you're not even allowed to tell me what you're working on, and that's so frustrating. London is a beautiful city, but it isn't home. I hope I'll see you soon, Milton.
Ending input.
Maybe now that you say that, I can see Okay, so the ticket is a Apollo Airways ticket, passenger contract ticket. Mr. and Mrs. Charles Porter, August 26th of 1939. London, 3:29 p.m. Philadelphia, 7:15 a.m. I think that's your answer right there.
There you go.
So this is when they moved
That
to
is the
London.
answer.
This is when they moved to London.
Uh-huh.
The ticket on the actual like bag, it shows like a London logo, LOND. That also references to that it's like going to London. So this is like his bags and stuff like that from that time frame. Like it's a memory. I didn't see the Philadelphia part before. I was missing that. Never read that part. So that's good to know. It's good to see. Trying to think if there was anything else. So this is similar to like Bioshock 1 and similar to Bioshock 2 replayability for sure, even if after we've had the discussions, so that I can see those things and probably re-explain them too as I see them, because I think that'd be kind of cool to see, because I know even when I played Bioshock 2's ending twice, I had some different opinions on some things, but I didn't fully get the answers I needed. I'm not looking, in my opinion, as we like talk about this, as like a exact answer from you, just a theory that maybe did you think of this or did not. Sound like some things to me that you were like, I didn't even think that deep, that didn't even concern me, or that's a good question. But I think overall it was a good talk. I loved the DLC. I loved Bioshock 2. I'm looking forward to Infinite. If they keep having separate stories, we don't necessarily have to tie into, well, remember what happened in Bioshock 1 with Atlas? Well, that is a reason, because in Bioshock Infinite, there's this small, you know, like, I don't feel like any of that's going to happen. Yeah, I want to see what kind of, I guess we're going to have to say at this point, a theme and what they're going to follow, because I am kind of curious on that. Excited. Can't wait till Infinite. More confusion. Yay. Also, thanks for being here. Did you have fun?
I hated every second of it.
Oh, shit. Well, I can't wait to have you on Infinite then, because you're going to hate it even more.